from out the moon and the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds begin to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff, while you're breaking me down, you can feel your fingers stick.
Hey, this is Ryan Heron, cannabis writer and advocate from Portland, Oregon.
And I'm Amanda Breeze. I'm a cannabis writer here in Toronto.
We're here today to talk about all the fun stuff around one of our favorite plants, cannabis. We're continuing our series with kind of cool jobs in the industry, or people who have kind of created careers for themselves in this space. And today we have Adrian Stein of Dope Cocktails with us. Thanks for joining us, Adrian.
Thanks for having me.
I've been to several events where Adrian has been the infused bartender, and I have been absolutely wowed by the flavors, but also the garnishes, the flair, the experience from walking up to the bar to walking away with my cocktail. I've been a fan of Dope Cocktails and Adrian's work for actually quite some time now, so I'm really excited.
Thank you very much.
We got to talk a little bit with Adrian before we started, and it turns out he's been in the industry as far as cocktails and drink making goes for like over 2 decades now. So you'll have to tell us about how you got started with that, and then your kind of like gravitation towards working with terpenes and cannabinoids.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm 45, right? I started making drinks at the very end of high school, basically. So when I just turned 19, started at a coffee shop in Yorkville, like an espresso bar. And it had several different styles of drinks, kind of ahead of its time, kind of like Starbucks now. The way Starbucks is now with 85 different drinks, that's how it was then, right? But so I learned from the get-go, just like how to make all these different drinks, work fast. And it just happened to be something that I really enjoyed. For some reason, I just like, it grabbed me, to the point where like I didn't even complete university. I was studying psychology, and I'm like, this isn't necessarily for me. And I was working part-time in restaurants, making good money. So I'm like, well, I'm already making adult money. Maybe I'll just explore this career path. Then, I let my parents know, and they weren't necessarily happy with that decision, but supportive. And my dad says to me, he's like, okay, you want to go be a bartender? That's cool. But like, don't go be a bartender. Go be like the best bartender, right? Yes. Go be the city's best bartender. Like, take it on. Right?
Yeah, good advice.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Just moving forward in my career, I just sort of like thought about that. I also really enjoyed it. And just through my own, desire to learn, I started playing and seeking knowledge. I apprenticed in the kitchen for like 9 months. I wanted to learn how to use a knife, basic cooking skills. I wanted to just be familiar. I wanted like the agility and dexterity of someone in the back. I did that. And then around 2008, I got invited to be part of my first cocktail competition, and I happened to win it. And that competition was titled Toronto's Best Bartender,
Nice.
Something like that. And they put it in the newspaper as Toronto's Best Bartender, and like that was like part of the prize. And like again, like I'm not claiming to be or ever have been, but that's just what they called it, right?
That's the newspaper. That's real.
It counts. Yeah.
I mean, it's still on the internet, right? Like it's still there. So, but as a result, I established myself quickly. That was like, Facebook was new, but there's no Instagram. So people read this in the paper, and then word travels. All of a sudden, they're like, whoa, this is Toronto's new best bartender, right? So I started getting a lot of opportunities. And then without taking the conversation too dark, I have a background with drug addiction. I actually, at the same time of my career excelling, so was my drug addiction. This is the same time that Oxycontin was really big, and I got grabbed by that. I was able to kind of manage it for a bit, to the point where I was like in the mixology scene, where I developed this reputation as like a very skilled bartender with potentially a pretty heavy drug problem, right? Just like, It was like the two came together.
Yeah.
That was my reputation. Without going too far into details with that, I ended up seeking treatment in 2010, my first run at it. And as a result of that, I met many people who didn't drink alcohol. I learned about, like, I should say, like, I got hooked on drugs around that time, but it was the exact same time I gave up alcohol. I haven't drank alcohol for 15 years, even though I work with it. I learned on my own that it wasn't for me, even though, like I said, it was like a tool for me to make money and create things. And so coming out of treatment for the first time, I started kind of diving into like non-alcoholic cocktails. And then I got my next piece of media coverage from the now editor of Kind magazine, which is kind of interesting,
Oh,
right?
Very
neat.
cool.
So at the time, Ben Kaplan, yeah, he did a feature. He was sitting at a bar that I was working at, and a pregnant lady asked me to make her a drink, and I made her like a grapefruit lavender mojito, no-hito. And it was a very exclusive cocktail bar. And I served, she's like, wow, this is amazing. And he's like, wait a second, like you don't drink and you work at one of like the most exclusive bars and you just made this lady he's like, I got to do a story on this. Yeah. So that helped me too. And then at the same time that happened, I got into, like heroin. Like it was like, I relapsed. And so like every time I had these like accolades, I also had these huge collapses. Like it was almost like
Yeah.
they came hand in hand. Right. So then moving to 2019, I'd been in and out of treatment. I had a couple years of recovery a few times, but I was still kind of slipping and sliding, as they say. So 2019, I get put on methadone, just like stabilize, like a maintenance drug, and I'm experiencing a lot of side effects from that. Like, so I'm clean, I'm on methadone, I'm stabilized on that, but I have to work, and the methadone's bringing a ton of side effects. And it's protecting me and it's doing its job, but it's got some side effects. So my doctor suggests I look into cannabis. He's like, my other patients reported really good results by using cannabis to help mitigate the side effects of the methadone. I went down to one of the dispensaries and I talked to a bud tender and I told her why I was there. And she suggests I get into the one-to-one experience. And like I was a drug addict, active drug addict. And so previously when people talked about CBD to me, I was like, I don't want to hear about this like mumbo jumbo stuff that you can't feel, right? And so learning about it and then using it together with THC, it was like a very profound, eye-opening experience. And then getting into it for a short period of time, one morning I just like kind of realized like how good I felt and how I was moving forward. I had no cravings, and I'm like feeling like strong and grounded. And I'm just like, I got to start making drinks with this. There's got to be a way to take non-alcoholic drinks and this one-to-one experience, because number one, it feels great. And number two, could probably help a lot of people, And so that's how I got into cannabis drinks. It was sort of like a culmination of my food and beverage background and mixed in with my addiction and mixed in with my recovery. That's that.
What a cool story, man. I love that you're behind the bar working with these ingredients and knowing that you don't actually need the booze to make a good cocktail. My wife doesn't drink, and so I'm always dragging her to decent cocktail bars, and it's always such a relief when it's on the menu, because then you don't have to go up and like act like you're asking somebody a favor. But even better when you can just go up and say, hey, can you make me something tropical with no booze in it? It seems like more and more bartenders are open to doing something like that and have something like in their back pocket.
If I can be 100% honest, when I got my notoriety for my non-alcoholic drinks, I was the only guy doing it. And I was jealous of my friends that were getting the shine on the alcoholic drinks. Even though I didn't drink, I felt like I was like, oh, I'm the Shirley Temple guy, to myself, right? Back in the day.
That's so funny. Trendsetter. No, of course.
I was like, man, like I'm known for my non-alcoholic drinks. That's cool. But like, I want to be known for, right? So, but now it's like, I don't think that way out. Through my own journey with creating non-alc drinks and cannabis drinks, I find it more challenging, not more challenging, but it's different because there's no alcohol. I feel I put in way more effort on every aspect of the drink for non-alcoholic. And even when I design drink lists for restaurants, a lot of the time they're like, wow, your non-alcoholic drinks are like crazier than the alcoholic drinks. I do that intentionally. For those who don't get the alcohol, you're going to get the other fun stuff, right? So
yeah. Well, and from the work that I saw, it looked like it wasn't just like a booze-free pina colada. You weren't just doing a riff on something. It was like a wholly new creation of something that you're making. Like I saw that you're working with a lot of like terpene strain profiles and things like that, which is not something you're going to find like on somebody's normal back bar.
Exactly. So when I set out to create dope cocktails, I got some advice from somebody who was well-versed in cannabis. I should say, like, I had smoked weed maybe I smoked weed from when I was like 18 into 30, and then I stopped for 10 years and picked it back up. So like coming into the new weed world, it's totally new, and I don't know anything. And I say to this guy, I'm like, how do I make these drinks strain specific and dose accurately, right? And he's like, well, we're going to use concentrates and terpenes. We're going to take the same idea that they do in vape pens, and we're going to put it in a drink. This was 2019. And at the time, there was like one cocktail book available, and like there was some good knowledge in there, but it was using flour, so it can't dose accurately, right? Everybody else is using tinctures, and oil and water don't mix. So I'm like, I'm not just going to be like all the other people do. I have to create my own style. There has to be like a something special dosing agent, right? So I decided, okay, there's no alcohol to infuse. So I'm going to, the only thing that made sense was syrups, because sugars, and I already had a background through sodas. Because sodas sometimes use oils for flavor. I'd already learned how to sort of emulsify oil into water. So I figured, I knew it was possible. And then, learning about the terpenes, the entourage effect and all that stuff, I decided I wanted to work mainly with the food sounding terpenes. Like for the most part, like if it's Halloween, I'll use some like something, or if it's like, if I'm doing an event and somebody has theme, to me, I want it to taste blackberry kush more than like gas mask in my drink. Then it just, for me, it's natural. I'm like, okay, I can go back to my other way of the way I create flavor profiles, either through complementary flavors or contrasting flavors. So if like I'm going to use cucumber and elderflower in a drink, and I want a hit of berries, but I don't want to put berries in it, well, maybe I'm going to use a berry-based terpene, right? And like now I know through my other work, it's going to work.
Nice.
So, and the other thing too is somebody who's been working with flavors for like 25 years, I've been like working with the same flavor wheel the whole time. All of us have. And all of a sudden you bring terpenes in, you have a new sub wheel, even though limonene comes from lemons and limes and whatnot, like it's different. And it's also cool to be able to flavor something without putting the actual, like, let's say you don't want to flavor with lemon juice, but you want the flavors of lemon. And like, there's so many different things you get with the terps.
I also think it's really neat when the drink tastes like weed. Because I feel like sometimes that gets put aside to be like, it's a weed drink, but it doesn't taste like weed. You can't tell there's weed in it. But I think the weed flavor is really fun. So I like that you're bringing in all of these like strain terpenes and really embracing that flavor and putting it all together.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I've been working with terpenes since 2019. And then this year when I like getting into event season, early April, I was like, I've been kind of mild on the terps, trying to keep it like in the back end on the finish. I'm going to go opposite this year. I'm going terp forward. I want to like slap everyone in the face with the terpenes. I want you to know that this drink is built out around this terp profile, And I'm also going to pair the food flavors to go with it. And really interesting enough, number one, a lot of the cannabis cocktail events I offer THC, CBD 1-to-1 or non-active. And the most popular is the non-active. So,
really?
But what draws them to that is that the terps are in there. They're like, oh, I want the terpene infused. Like they don't even use the non-active language. They're like, I want the terpene infused one, right? Like the guest asked for that. They know about it. They've already been smoking weed. Maybe they took a gummy already. Maybe it's in the middle of the day. And then what's really nice is I have a lot of friends, number one, in recovery that don't use cannabis at all. And now they were able to taste it. And they really like the taste. Like, wow, this, like I had one of my friends, he's like, you're lying to me. There's not weed in this. There has to be weed in this. There's not, right? He's like, this is crazy. He's like, it's delicious. He's like, I don't even smoke weed. Now we're like, really like, my intention of dope cocktails is like food and beverage and cannabis. So terpenes really do it. It's also the only thing that you can actually serve legally, right, to the public.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really perfect timing, especially with the kind of event seasons that you can pop up anywhere if you're just serving a juice with some botanical accompaniments, right? You don't have a lot of restrictions around that. You don't have to get a special license to sell that in most situations. So I think that's kind of great that you can kind of Trojan horse your way into weed events or non-weed events and present like a very cannabis forward dope cocktails and educate people the whole time. And they're just enjoying a drink,
And they want it too. It's not even like, oh, well, this is like next best thing because there's no cannabinoids in it. People are just like, they're down with it. I mean, obviously, there's still the people that want the dosing agents and like the cannabinoids, right? But there's still like a large group. And then even recently, like I've been thinking about like even starting to put terpenes on in cocktails in restaurants, you know? I'm like, I'm going to, in fact, I'm gonna have to find the right restaurant. But like, I don't know any restaurants in Toronto that are using, linalool or like limonene or whatever it might be in cocktails in a restaurant. Like, and then we're like taking cannabis into restaurants.
Yeah, well, and cocktail culture, that's the way it grows. And, you make something that has like linalool in it, and it's your very distinct whatever you have going on. And then somebody goes, wow, that's amazing. I need to remake that. I need the recipe. And then, half the bars in Toronto now have a bottle of linalool to play around with. I think that it's really cool the way that that network already shares flavors, and you're just kind of there to add cannabis to it.
Exactly. And I mean, that's a good segue into the products that I created. That's basically what I set out to do is over the pandemic, I launched Dope Cocktails right before the pandemic started. And then, everyone's at home. Like people I know are messaging me for, hey, can you make me some of those weed drinks? I'm like, not really. I don't know how I'm going to get them to you. Like keep them fresh. I use fresh ingredients. I don't have like a canning machine, but maybe I can make you something that you can make your own drinks with. And so I had the syrups in my back and I started refining. And then, you're talking about a bartender having linalool syrup behind their bar. Well, currently, right now, almost every bar in Toronto has lime cordial behind their bar, right? And so the first product I created was limonene cordial. And like, so it's like literally exactly what you just said. And one day I'm hoping, every bar in Toronto will have a bottle of limonene cordial behind it, even if it doesn't have active cannabinoids in it.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love
In
that.
Portland, Ryan, I feel like that is like so Portland, like with the cocktail scene there, and people love these like bespoke cocktails and things. I think Toronto would love it, and I think Portland would really go for it too.
I'd like to see other people make like it's still be so cool to have a cannabis bar to me as a drink maker.
I think that moment that many of us have had walking into like a coffee shop in Amsterdam or a social lounge where you're hit in the face with just 12 different kinds of weed, and it's a little overwhelming at first, but it's really exciting. Getting that from a cocktail or a cocktail lounge is something that I think we're totally missing out on.
Especially with how slow legalization has been to roll out. These are fantastic first steps for the inevitable. We don't know when, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. And it's also like a really smart bridge too, because it helps people who don't use cannabis recognize the utility for it. Like Adrian was saying, people who no longer take alcohol can have a drink. Like Liquid Death has become so popular because it's kind of like a sober alternative. And so are these terpene drinks, and they help educate people who don't imbibe or enjoy about like, oh, hey, this is pretty actually innocuous, or this did make me feel good or elevated my mood. Maybe I shouldn't have such like strong stance on like full cannabis products.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, functional food and beverage is like on trend. So
yeah, absolutely.
Getting more like there's the cannabis, like the cafe experience, having those, whatever, infused coffees or milkshakes and to get rocketed to Mars experience. But then there's like the super high CBD, CBG smoothie you can serve the athlete before they work out, right? And then like the opposite effect when they're after they work out, and like there's all these other different experiences that can come down the road that I would like to be part of. I'm already working on like in the States. I got to experience a product that it's called Level Pro Tabs. I don't know if you've had a chance to try them. And it was they have a product. It's a dissolvable pill, sublingual, that's THCV, THC, and CBG as a pre-workout. I do HIIT style exercise, and it was such a cool product. Lasted the right amount of time for me. They also had just a CBG dissolving pill, which was also, I took it in like after a stressful day, and it was like such a cool product. So to have like these like combinations of cannabinoids to like target specific ailments or like looking for solutions, and then to put them into your food and drink. Like maybe it's a muffin. You're stressed out. Oh, I'm going to eat a muffin. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, exactly. I think the athletes is a really good example, right? Because they're already showing up somewhere, it's GNC here in the States, and saying like, okay, I'm willing to throw some money down on whatever will help me with my workout. So let's talk about what has protein and what has creatine and what has I don't know. I'm still learning, right? But we still have this like large learning curve here for cannabis for people, especially about these rare cannabinoids or these individual terpenes and the experiences they can provide. I'm lucky enough to have like been able to like vaporize some pure CBG and experience that along with CBN and THC and a bunch of other rare cannabinoids. Most people don't have access to that. And a dissolvable sounds like a really fun way, or at least like a really good entry into educating people about this. Okay, hey, we're going to use this for a specific situation, working out. These are the cannabinoids that are going to give you the desired effect. You actually don't even need to know any more about that. Just trust me on this and go forward from there. So I think that's really cool. And it kind of shows how we have like a little way to go for everyone to just walk into the dispensary and say, hey, I'm looking for something THCV dominant because I need a lot of like creative focus today. But we're getting there. And, I'm hoping, Adrian, you do get that canning machine and you can kind of like give us your own version of the effects on the side of the can. And so I can pop that and just put my trust in you.
Definitely working towards that. And like little off topic, but like I started working a little bit with psilocybin this year, but like micro dose. So using cannabinoids and like micro dose psilocybin, having them work together in a drink. Haven't figured out how to dose accurately yet, but I'm still working on that in the sense of, some people experience mild sedation from like cannabis drinks, even 10 milligram, even with CBD, right? And then microdose is kind of like stimulating in the time, like it's like it will kind of awaken you a bit. It's like brightening and focusing. So having them work together, you get whatever you get as an individual from the cannabinoids because we all receive different things, right? And then also you're balanced out with a microdose of microdose. So
I immediately want to try it. That sounds so.
and like part of the reason why I thought that I was a good candidate for dope cocktails is like I told you, I was known as the drug addict bartender, right? I'm like, I might as well be the one making the drug drinks. You know what I mean? Because I personally understand how these things are, and also like I try things and like to get an understanding, right? I really think that that's like future, like there's like adaptogens and there's all these natural health products that I'm still learning about. And then we can really dive into like the function that we'll be drinking with like purpose. I'm drinking this drink dose like that for this. I'm not going to necessarily get high from it, but my muscles feel better. I'm not stressed out. I get a little bit of what I need, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I love that because for me, I love drinking like high CBD drinks, like 5 to 20 milligrams. But I love doing CBD drinks and then sitting down and getting shit done. Like I find when I drink CBD, it activates my mind in this way where it becomes like very focused and I can actually accomplish the task at hand. But I feel a little like it dulls the creativity. So personally, I would love like a little micro dose mushroom bev with like a little, like, I don't know, maybe some turkey tail, like maybe some like good mushrooms and then like the magic mushrooms and a little CBD. Cause I've tried doing like 1-to-1 gummies instead and I just don't get anything done. Like I haven't found that magic number where I can like get in the zone but still get things done. So I want it.
I mean, the first one I tried on myself was with matcha too, right? So then you also get the stimulation from the matcha. And then one thing I haven't really touched on is that for the most part, I try and make all my non-alcoholic and cannabis drinks the opposite of what most cocktails are. And I try and use like natural, healthy products, like through and throughout, like no white sugar, sugar alternatives, dairy alternatives, fresh ingredients, seasonal vegetables, fruits and vegetables, like everything, right? Then, I mean, I was sort of handcuffing myself. So now I allow myself a little bit of wiggle room to have some fun, but that's how it all started. And that's how I really like to keep it for the most part. And like using like liqueur waters for flavoring instead of, sugars and flavor, like, cause like I make my mixes with the fresh and then I can dilute it or cut it without adding sugar. And so really trying to keep it like the anti-cocktail.
Hearing you talk about beverages, so much consideration goes into everything you do, and yet you make it look so fucking easy.
It feels pretty easy to me. Like I honestly, like without sounding like, I just like, sometimes I feel like I get more credit than I deserve. Like I do an event, I was like, wow, that was really easy. But I guess that's like what happens when you become good at your craft or you spend enough time doing it, 25 years. You know, if I try to fix a leaky pipe, I wouldn't know where to begin. Call a plumber, they're just like, oh, this guy couldn't have done this himself, right? Same
Yeah.
idea. So, I guess I just spent enough time doing it. I had some really strong mentors. I happen to work for some of the best in the industry, and I really enjoy it. Like I like the creativity side of it. I really like food and beverage. Even as a little kid, I loved drinks, like obsessed with different flavors of sodas. Shirley Temple was always my favorite drink, right? So
Classic.
suiting that I become the Shirley Temple guy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm very lucky that I found something that I love to do. And then now it's like also attached to my personal lifestyle. All of these years I've been working with alcohol. And like I said, I gave it up 15 years ago. When I was at the top of my prime as like a cocktail bartender, I was getting a lot of free alcohol and I didn't drink any of it. I'm like giving it away to people. I'm like, now I work around cannabis and I'm not necessarily making money in cannabis, but I get a lot of free cannabis. So like, that's cool. You know what I mean? So it's like,
That's been going around. So earlier this year, Ryan and I attempted to, we succeeded in crafting our own cocktail.
oh
And
yeah.
it honestly, we make flavors, we do formulations, we are smelling. I'm a smell person, Ryan's a flavor person. Like, I think we're a pretty good team, but I was so surprised at how hard it was to use terpenes to make a good cocktail. And we work with terpenes. This is what we do. But I had never sat down and tried to make it into like this tasty drink. And I was really surprised. And I think that's why I'm always so wowed with your flavor medleys at the events that we've done.
Yeah, they're really intense. They're, turned up to 11. They're really hard to balance. So yeah, man, hats off. It's a lot to work with. I did want to ask you, do you end up saying, okay, I'm going for this specific effect, so I'm going to go for a more sedative profile, or is it mostly like flavor and taste with you?
It's both. To me, it's like if I'm making a drink, I think about the color and like the mood of the color. And like, so if I've got a drink that's like purple already, I'm probably going to take it towards the indica route. And like, I want the terpenes to dictate that experience. I can't say for sure that everyone's going to receive a sedating experience from me
Sure.
adding terpenes to a non-alcoholic, non-dose drink. Certainly lavender makes me tired. Chamomile makes me tired, right? Like relaxes me. I know citrus brightens me and gives me focus. So I do use them with intention. And I hope that the guest, they get that experience from it. So some of the newer products that I have coming out, I have two like cocktail syrups. One is basically a citrus-based one with sativa terpenes, and the other one is like violet, cherry, ginger, lime with indica terpenes. So it's like fluorescent red as a sativa and like dark purple as a indica.
Wow.
And so it's all like it's a kind of like it all gets created together. The flavor, the color, the terp profiles. One thing that I've been playing around now, actually, you're gonna like this, is getting like it's the kind of like the food geek inside of me is like pairing acids with the terpenes, right?
Oh.
So for example, I came up with something called Girl Scout cookie cordial, and a cordial is an acidified syrup, right? So it's got Girl Scout cookie terpenes with lactic acid, which is the acid of milk. So you've got Girl Scout cookies and you got lactic acid, so you got milk and cookies, right? And then I had, right? So it's like, really getting geeky about it, right?
Wow.
And then like using like a grape style, what was it? Granddaddy Perp cordial. And that is, the flavor profile of grapes. And then using tartaric acid to balance it, which is the acid of grapes, right?
Huh.
So like really like taking it on all three levels and having fun with it. And like, I guess you have to have some food knowledge around that. And I learned about acids through my study of wine. And so it's like, I'm taking all my knowledge and I'm applying it as much as I can to dope cocktails and dope mocktails and the terpenes, and like really trying to have fun. Because another thing that I learned is that through my experience with cocktail competitions and presenting drinks, you're telling a story, right? You're not just creating a product, but you have to tell a story. And the better the story, the better the taste. So it's like when I tell everybody milk and cookie syrup and that, they're just like, what? They're like, give me that. You know, they've already decided that it's going to taste good before, like you said, like coming up to the table, leaving the table. I see people coming up, standing in line patiently, big smile on their face. I'll have that one. They take their pictures. They leave happy. Like, I know I've done my job and I haven't even seen them taste it.
You haven't even touched on your garnishes, because I think that the other element is these like beautiful garnishes that just kind of bring that whole thing. Now, I've talked about this on other episodes. I am allergic to fucking pineapple, and I drank one of your pineapple cocktails because it was so fucking pretty and like blood. And
sorry.
But, no, I've done it a few times this year. But it was so pretty. It was so pretty.
Thanks.
Knowing the damage I was doing, I had to go for it. I had to try it. The garnishes are stunning.
Thank you. So when I first started doing events and stuff, I was like bringing out my bar tools. I'm like, I'm not really using them. I don't really need them for this. I'm like, this is more of a, because I pre-batch everything, right? And like, that's how I do my alcoholic events too. And so I'm like, okay, I don't need my bar tools. So what's going to be the razzle dazzle? It's going to be what's on top of the cup, right? You know,
I never even
like,
thought of that. That's so true.
The highlight of the show is the like certain bartenders use dry ice. They use the bubble guns. They use, you know, whatever edible glitter and stuff like that. They juggle or flare, I should say, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, this time, like, I'm not going to be shaking. I'm not wearing a vest and bow tie. I'm not stirring things. Like, it's different. This is a different vibe, and I'm going to make the vibe match the rest of the vibe. Started out as an Instagram account because of COVID, right? So I'm like, I need to bring the Instagram account to people now, but I have to do it in a way that I can pop up anywhere. I did events in New York City, Montreal. I got to make sure that I can execute.
So true. And of the two events I attended, one was consumption allowed and one was consumption not allowed. So you were making virgin cocktails for one of the events the whole night, infused cocktails the other night. And both of them were just like, the setup is just, it's a whole vibe. You got a whole vibe going.
Thanks.
The history in working in restaurants and everything, you know about matching the vibe, like you were saying, and setting the scene and storytelling and the concept behind things. So even if I just walk up and I'm in the middle of a conversation, I grab my granddaddy purple drink, I don't even know what it is, and I start sipping it and I walk off. I had a stellar experience just because of what you created. That's worth mentioning, that's like an important skill that you've brought along with all of this.
Honestly, even though like it's not like Adrian has this like big fucking banner and this big come drink a cocktail sign, it is a spectacle because the drinks are so stunning. And then of course, like you're saying, delicious.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Everybody around the cocktail world and the alcohol world and restaurants, they'd seen all the moves a million times. And like, especially from 2008 until 2019, 20, like, mixology went from like hardly anyone did it to like every single person on the planet, not just bartenders make drink, right? You got cocktail influencers, you got people at home doing it, lawyers and doctors and gardeners on the weekends making nice drinks, right? To me, it was like, okay, well, the cannabis industry universe is brand new and they haven't seen this stuff. In terms of flavor profiles and whatnot, I found that my creative boundaries have been pushed more, really trying to up the game and like working with Kind magazine as well, like food styling and whatnot. The last round of drinks we just did, I came up with a drink that looks like a carrot. And like, that's a thing in a cocktail world. Like, like I'm not the only one that does it, but this one was like, and it's like served with edible dirt, something I've never done before.
Whoa.
Right. So it basically looks like you pulled the carrot out of the ground, the whole drink itself. Right.
Oh my
God.
Right, we got to find this.
It's pretty cool. And then another one, which is, I'll allude towards another one of my new products I'm working on, is I'm working on infused ice cubes, right? So
cool.
And so this
that's weird, but I like it.
So this issue was based around health and wellness, and like through my own recovery journey, health and wellness is like deeply ingrained in me. And so I was basically picking some of the stuff I practice. I'm big into meditation and mindfulness. And so I designed this drink with like matcha and chai and coconut and sesame, with like a sesame coconut, almost yin yang on top of this big ice cube infused with cannabis. And the whole idea is that in order to receive your cannabis, you have to allow it you have to sit with it and let it melt, forcing you to be mindful, present in the moment. right? Take your time with it, right? So it's like, it's pretty cool, I think. You know?
Yeah. All right.
Really-
Okay. So Adrian, tell us where we can find you at so I can follow along, because I mean, I got to have these cocktails in my life.
Yeah, for sure. So dope.cocktails on Instagram is where you're gonna find most of the newest, like all of my drinks. And then if you're able to get to Kind Magazine on Ontario is where I'm designing a lot of these fancy drinks for, but my Instagram account for sure.
Well, very nice. I'm so glad we had you here today and to hear your perspective, and we can keep an eye out for these syrups and stuff, and find you on Instagram. You can find us too at the smoking spot. Amanda and I are both on there and available, so go ahead and hit us up with all your questions. We'll be continuing our cool jobs in the industry season, so stick with us next week.
Yes. Thanks so much, Adrian.
Thank you very much.
Said no matter what kind of pain and anguish life may bring you, oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find your smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find your smoking spot.
Hey, Smoking Spot fans. We're here to tell you about the newest launch from Centelligence Projects.
Over the last year, we've created the Cannabis Aroma Wheel. It's a sensory tool designed to help connoisseurs take their knowledge to the next level. So whether you're a bud tender, dispensary owner, cultivator, or you just love the smell of weed, you can better appreciate the cannabis in front of you.
Get your copy of the most detailed sensory tool built specifically for the cannabis industry and order your Cannabis Aroma Wheel today at centelligenceproject.com.